And some good nuts. Oh, excuse me, folks. Caught me at snack time here. Better put my nut bag down. Today we're going to talk about spark on lawnmowers. I'm going to give you a quick lesson on how a lawnmower engine creates spark, and then I'm going to show you how it does not create spark. When you intentionally turn it off, why does it not stop making spark? But also, what are some issues when you want it to make spark, but it won't make spark with all the different safety switches and all that, and why is it shutting off on you or not starting? So we're going to go through all that, and then at the end, specifically for all my redneck viewers, which I think is 90% of my audience, I'm going to give you a little trick on this lawnmower, how to bypass all the safety switches where it'll still make spark. It doesn't care what the safety switches are doing. Now, the lawnmower we're working on is an icon in America. This is the Snapper 28-inch high vac with an 11.5 horse Briggs & Stratton motor on the back. This thing is the most simple lawnmower I have ever seen for a riding lawnmower. It doesn't even have a battery. It's straight pull start. Everything's mechanical on it. It is super cool. Made infamous by Mr. Forrest Gump himself.
Because I was a gazillionaire and I liked doing it so much, I cut that grass for free.
Yep, so if you want to see a really bad Forrest Gump impression, stick around to the end. It is piss poor. So with that, what we're going to do, we're going to get underneath the hood of this little sucker, and I'm going to show you a little lesson on how she makes spark. So stay with me, and I'm going to get back to my nuts. Let's start this lesson by talking about how does your small engine create spark, and then we're going to get into some issues about why it does not create spark. So what we've got here, we've got the Briggs & Stratton 11 horse. We got the top off her. You can see she's a little beat up. But the way an engine makes spark, and this goes along with anything from your car engine to any lawnmower engine, is that right here, this big piece of metal is called the flywheel, and it's a real heavy piece of metal that connects down through your connecting rods, your crankshaft, all that type of stuff. So as the engine spins, this thing is going to spin. So when you crank it with an electric start or you pull it, it's spinning. And on this flywheel right there, you can see there's a magnet. And what happens is, as this magnet passes right here, which is the coil, boom, boom, it creates a little magnetic charge, a little electrical charge that goes up in here, goes into this coil. Now this coil is very tightly wound with several layers of copper wire, and it creates a spark, a bigger electrical charge. Now the electrical charge is got to go somewhere. So when the engine is running and when you're actually firing, what it does is that it sends that electrical charge down here because it's always trying to find a ground, and it finds a ground in the spark plug, because that's why that little loop is on the end of the spark plug, because it is grounding right there. And when it makes fire, it jumps across that little tiny gap, creates a spark when it grounds, and it creates fire and goes boom, boom, and you're running. Now, when it is not going boom, boom, when you're not getting fire here, there can be a couple of reasons. But a good way to test, your first test is trying to figure out, is it because of a bad coil, or is it because of some sort of switch or safety switch or something like that? So the next part I want you to focus is on this wire. Every coil is going to have a kill wire, like this guy right here. So the first step to test whether or not it's just a simple coil issue or something more complex is you just take that kill wire off, go ahead and crank it, and see if it makes spark. Now, if it makes spark without this kill wire connected, that means your coil's good, all the stuff is good, but you've got a different electrical connection issue somewhere in the safety switch or ignition switch, which we will talk about that in a minute. Now, if it does not make spark when you do that, that means that it's probably not an issue down here through your electrical system. It's probably something isolated up here in your coil. Now, to fix that, you can do a couple of things. I have had success just by, see this magnet gets awfully rusty and dirty. You can just sand that magnet and see if that starts making spark. Also, you can replace the coil. A lot of times that could be it. These coils are super cheap. I've got videos on all this stuff, on testing spark, on replacing coils, which I'll put links down below. But yeah, essentially that. So if it is not making spark with the wire unhooked, you can replace the coil, clean this guy, maybe clean up your spark plug. And also I've got testing videos on testing spark down below where you can see how it works. Now, one thing to be tricky, if you do unhook this and you still got it in here and you're testing and it starts, that means that your kill switch is not working. So when you turn the switch off, it will not stop running. In order to make it stop running, you have to just grab the spark plug boot and pull it off the spark plug, which can be a little exciting sometimes. So with that, what we're gonna do next, we're gonna trace down if this wire here is killing your spark when you don't mean it to. So we're gonna trace down this kill wire, this black wire, and we're gonna figure out the reasons that it does what it does and some simple ways to bypass it. So stay with me. What I'm gonna show you next is what grounds out that coil. In other words, what kills the spark or what turns off the lawnmower. So what we're looking at here is the back side of the lawnmower. Now realize this is a very old engine. A lot lawnmowers are more complex than that, but this is a very simple illustration of how this works. So right here, if you remember that black wire going to that coil, that is this wire here, as you can see, and it goes to this little bus, and it's got a few nuts on it and a few different wires. Now remember, this wire needs to ground, and this little bus here is not a ground. The ground is down here. Now, when you look at it, all right, so you've got your wire come from the coil, but then you got two other black wires. Now, one of these black wires goes to the ignition key. It comes back with the green wire. The other one over here, it goes to all the safety switches, runs through a route of about 3 safety switches, comes back here to ground it out. Now, how does this work? So essentially, you've got a wire here. Now, when you turn off the ignition key, what it does is it actually, the ignition key allows power to go through it, and that way, when you turn it on, you're grounding. So, for example, to put this in an illustration, we can all see, when we take this nut off, and what we're going to do is test continuity. Now, all right, so let's see here. Take this off. Whoa, take that off. Now, in order to test it, what I'm going to do, we've got yourself a voltmeter, and the way I set it is I set it on ohms. So right down there, we got 200,000 ohms is usually where I set it. And how that works is that when you connect the two, it goes to 0. When you unconnect it, it's 1. So when we connect two wires, these to two ends of two wires, if there is continuity, meaning voltage can all the way go through it, it goes to 0. So right now we have the ignition key off. So when the ignition key is off, let's find this wire here. So that is going to the ignition switch, going to the other wire, which is the green wire. Look at that. You have continuity. So when that ignition key's off, what it is doing, it's allowing the grounding wire, this to be a grounding wire, because it's an open circuit to the ground down here in the green. And when it's an open circuit to the ground, it grounds out this entire terminal, which as a result, it grounds out the coil. So now let me go ahead and I'm going to turn the ignition key on. Let's see here. So when the ignition key is on, look at that. It is not allowing power to go through it. Thus, it's not allowing it to ground out. So when the ignition key is on, it's actually cutting off that circuit to the ground. So I was looking at this, I was like, well, we got 2 wires for the ignition, but also we've got 2 wires that go to the safety switches. So what if we just left this one on there for the ignition key? That way the ignition key turns it off, but we take off the safety switch. So we remove the safety switch from this little bus. That way the safety switch is never allowed to turn off the lawnmower. I know this may not be too smart, but when we remove that, but we have our ground wire to the ignition, to the coil. We keep that sucker on there and put a little nut on there. Now these wires are separated, the little terminals are separated. So we'll put that on there, so that's on there. And then the ignition key ground wire And we're going to put that on there. So now, in theory, what will happen is that the safety switches are totally disconnected. So those safety switches, they're not disconnected, they're all hooked up. But the fact that it's not going to this bus means it will never be able to ground out and kill that coil. The only thing that's going to ground out the coil is when you turn off the ignition key. So let's try this out. What I think is going to happen is that we'll be able to start it, but there will be no kill switches related to the seat, related to the clutch, related to the even the blade. So, all right. So now we've got our little Briggs & Stratton hot wired, and we're going to go ahead and test it out. Stay with me. All right, kids, it's time for the big test. We've got our snapper here with the ground wire that hooks all the safety gauges, all the safety switches unhooked with just the ignition switch. Now, I want to emphasize this is probably not safe. This is just an experiment to see if it works. So we're going to go ahead and light her up. Hopefully it starts. We got ignition switch on, cranked up. All right, so I'm not sitting on it. In theory, let's see what happens. Oh, shit! Hello, my name's Forrest Gump. Today I was out mowing Mama's yard on my red ride-on snapper lawnmower, the 28-inch high-vac dual cut, and it died on me. I think the carburetor's dirty. So today I'm going to show you how to fix the carburetor on my snapper ride-on lawnmower. It has Briggs & Stratton 11.5 horse, 344 cc, single cylinder Intech, Briggs & Stratton engine. It has dual coil cylinder liner for cast iron, longer life. So we're going to go ahead and fix the carburetor. We're going to pull off the carburetor bowl. Because you know, carburetor bowls like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. So, that's it, folks. I can't keep doing Forrest Gump. I actually watched the entire movie just for that amazing scene.